Namaskar viewers, welcome to our continuing coverage of the Union Budget 2026-27. So in her 9th consecutive Union Budget, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced key reforms in direct and indirect taxes. A major highlight is the announcement that the new income tax 2025 will come into effect from the 1st of April this year. Also, the simplified income tax rules and forms will be notified shortly. The budget also proposes a host of measures aimed at simplifying tax compliance for the citizens, reducing TCS rates and extending the IT return filing deadline to 31st of March. The TCS rates on overseas tour packages and remittances for education and medical purposes have been slashed to just 2% now. On the indirect tax front, the government is looking to streamline customs duties, boost domestic manufacturing and enhance export competitiveness. The reforms include a rise in the duty-free import limit for seafood processing, also extended exemptions on capital goods for lithium-ion battery production and smoother customs processes for faster cargo clearance. To discuss the rationale behind these proposals and their potential impact on key sectors, we are joined by two distinguished guests. I'm pleased to welcome on Sansad TV Mr. Ravi Agrawal, Chairman of the Central Board of Direct Taxes. Sir, thank you for joining us on this telecast. And Mr. Vivek Chaturvedi, Chairman of the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Thank you, sir, for taking out time and joining us for this very important conversation. Mr. Agrawal, let's start with you and let's begin talking about the Income Tax Act, which comes into effect from the 1st of April 2026. It replaces a 6-decade-old law. So to put into perspective for our viewers, tell us about the transformative, how transformative this act is, how significant is this overhaul, and what kind of changes will it bring about?
So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. If you recall that Honorable Finance Minister in July 2024 had announced that we would actually do a complete review of the Income Tax Act 1961, and post that the exercise for coming up with a new Income Tax Act was started. Right. And then the bill, with all the changes and simplification of language, better presentation of the provisions, was done last February, which was then it went through the stakeholder consultation, including examination by the Select Committee of Parliamentary. And in August of 2025, the Parliament passed that bill and it became an Income Tax Act 2025. That was the first step, because till that time the language of the act had been simplified, the provisions had been presented in a manner that it was easy for the taxpayer to comprehend and to understand, and triggering better compliance. But now what has been proposed in the budget is the second step to that. Because before we actually roll it out from 1st of April 2026, and the act should be such which is simple in understanding, in the provisions, better presentation, as also the processes and the provisions of the act are so re-engineered that the overall experience of the taxpayer becomes better. That will trigger more compliance. And with that spirit, the provisions in the current budget have been put in place. So what are those major recommendations or proposals that have been presented in the budget? One is the decriminalization. So the provisions, the defaults which were otherwise, there was a punishment of imprisonment which was actually extending to 7 years, with the minimum imprisonment to maximum of 7 years. Along with fine. So those provisions defaults have been decriminalized, and the punishments have been brought down to a large extent, keeping in view the grade of the defaults that are embedded therein. And that also gels with the spirit of Jan Vishwas that the government has propounded. So that is one important component of it. The other is that minimizing of litigation as a theme that has been also a cause of concern, and that has been addressed in this budget by re-engineering or changing the procedures and processes involved in the assessment proceedings, as also providing multiple opportunities to the taxpayers to come forward and in case they want to end the dispute at different stages of the proceedings, they can come forward, pay additional tax and close the chapter. The third is, and this is basically, this is not only confined to before issuance of the notice, but even post issuance of the notice, if the taxpayer comes and wants to sort of close the issue with the more payment of taxes, that can be done. Even after the notice has been issued and the tax proceedings have been concluded and an order has been passed, even thereafter the taxpayer can come and settle the issue by not, so there he would be saved from the penalty and prosecution, he pays additional tax and closes the chapter. So this is one big step that has been taken in this budget. The third is, instead of a sequential assessment and thereafter penalty proceedings taking place and multiple proceedings including litigation, including more time, consumption of more time, because first assessment proceeding goes through, then it goes through the appellate process, and thereafter a penalty is initiated, it again goes through that appellate process. This entire thing takes a lot of time. That has been clubbed together and the proceedings are one, wherein both the penalty as well as the assessment as such, they go hand in hand, they go together, they are decided together. So that also would ease that will prompt compliance, optimize the effort of the taxpayer also, and reduce the time involved. The other is buyback provisions that have been rationalized, wherein now the buyback of shares are now, instead of dividend, now they are basically, they would be taxed as capital gains. The fourth is MAT provisions, the rationalization of that, wherein now the MAT provisions, those will be discontinued. And whatever MAT credit is available till 31st of March 2026, that credit would be made available, but no fresh credit of MAT would be created. So that is yet another one. Apart from that, a major shift in approach has been towards providing safe harbor, enhanced safe harbor provisions for IT and ITES companies, wherein the turnover of which was earlier, the companies were eligible for a safe harbor of 300 crores of turnover. Now that has been extended to 2000 crores of turnover, which covers majority of the companies in the IT, ITES sector, or contract R&D, or knowledge processing organizations, KPOs. So all that has been merged together, made it that has been brought in one umbrella, and that has also eased, that will prompt compliance. The other limb would be, I would say, providing tax certainty to the data center and cloud service provider companies, foreign companies who would be actually hosting their applications on the data centers situated in India. That is again a tax certainty which is provided till 2047. So the period of tax certainty is also substantial, and that would prompt the people to come and utilize the services of the data centers situated in India. Apart from that, there has been rationalization of TCS rates, some procedural changes in terms of the load deduction certificates, no deduction certificates, filing thereof, and so on and so forth. So there are so many lot of changes that have been made in the processes, and together simplified language, simplification processes together, when we actually roll out this act from 1st of April 2026, I think it would be a good experience for the taxpayers.
Wow, you've simplified all of these proposals that has been announced by the Finance Minister. Coming now to you, Mr. Chaturvedi, there have been several changes to customs duties in order to support domestic manufacturing, the exports. Can you walk us through some of the key changes, but most importantly their expected impact on critical sectors like marine, leather, textiles?
Right. So, as the Honourable Finance Minister stated in her budget speech, a lot of initiatives on customs duty concessions have been introduced. The approach has been very calibrated and very nuanced, let me put it. The government has identified very critical sectors and the criticality depends on how important the sector is, let's say for the purpose of energy security. So, you have customs duty concession on monazite, which goes into manufacture of magnets for electric vehicles. You have sodium antimonoid that goes into manufacture of solar glass for solar glass panels. It's about 26% of the cost. You have goods duty exemption for setting up nuclear power plants without any limit of the wattage. Earlier there was a limit of 440 megawatts. So, targeting energy security, that is one area. Then look at our export efforts. We are a big exporter of leather products. Shoe uppers is a particular item that is exported. There is a concession that has been given now in the budget for manufacture parts to be imported duty free on a concessional duty for the purpose of manufacture of shoe uppers, which will go into the export effort. Similarly, in the marine sector, there was a provision that 1% of your total export value of the previous year would be taken as an equivalence for duty free imports. This limit has now been hiked from 1 to 3%. So, this is a very strong boost to the food processing industry. Similarly, on cancer drugs, 17 drugs an exemption has been given, largely to look at the needs of individuals and promote the ease of living. 7 rare diseases have been further added to the list. So, persons unfortunately afflicted with any of those diseases, they can also avail of concessional duty imports. So, it has been a very nuanced, calibrated, sector wise approach, largely to see that inputs are given to the industry for the purpose of the making them more competitive, more efficient, for the purposes of looking at our export efforts also. For example, in fisheries, we have come up with a change in the definition of territorial waters, so that it is now made easier for Indian fishermen to do fish harvesting in the exclusive economic zone and beyond, and the produce which is taken there, if it comes back to the mainland, is not going to be treated as an import and suffer a duty. And similarly, you could export from there also. So, it gives a boost to and a fillip to the export processing industry. So, as I said, the approach has been very sector specific and country specific. Take the example of defense, where the raw materials and the manufacture of parts for use in the maintenance and repair of aircraft for defense purposes, that has been given a duty exemption. Similarly, parts and components for the manufacture of aircrafts have also been given a duty exemption. So, critical sectors for India, for the country. So, the approach has been very clear. We will promote our industry, make it more resilient, make it more export competitive, promote an ease of doing business, and this is of course mind you as far as the rates are concerned. The other part in the budget announcements was also largely related to the process simplifications on customs, which have also been addressed in a very large way in this budget.
Sure, we'll come to that also, but you spoke about how a lot of these measures will help India's export competitiveness, and this will help build resilience. That perhaps was the focus of this budget, given the timing that this budget was presented in. The geopolitical landscape is filled with volatilities and uncertainties, and it was important for the finance minister to lay out proposals which can further build this resilience and help us sustain that kind of growth. Another proposal to exempt income tax for foreign experts in India for up to 5 years, or for tax holidays to foreign companies using Indian data centers. How will this benefit India's digital, the tech sectors in the long run? That's to you, yes, Mr. Ashwin.
So far as the first point is concerned, there are a lot of non-resident Indians who want to come to India, and they are experts in their own field. They want to come to India and they want to associate themselves with some specified programs of the government. So, it is basically to encourage them, but their concern was, and the hesitation was, that if they come to India and stay here for a longer period, then they may turn out to be residents ultimately. Their status would change from a non-resident to a resident, and their global income would also get taxed. So, basically to take care of this concern and to encourage people from non-residents to come to India who are experts in the respective areas, this provision has been brought out, that in case they are non-residents for 5 years, before they come to India for a specified program, and they stay in India for 5 years for the purpose of this program, then their status would be considered as non-resident, and their global income would not be subject to tax. Essentially, that is bringing tax certainty to them, that if they come here and they actually provide their expertise and services for the purposes of specified programs of the government, then in such cases for 5 years their residency status would remain as non-resident, and their only Indian income would be subject to tax, and the global income would not be subject to tax. So that would perhaps prompt people to come and encourage people to come to India and provide their services, expert services. That is one. Insofar as the second point is concerned, that is relating to data centers, there is a huge potential because of setting up data centers in the country, especially because of the number of users of the information and the applications that are that can be made use of by the Indian public. So, to the hesitation of the foreign entities concerns companies was that if they come here and they provide services on the and they host their applications on the Indian data centers, then their business associations connections could be considered as a permanent establishment, and therefore their global income would be subjected to tax. So that was the concern of the foreign companies who who otherwise were wanting to come to India and host their applications on the India data center. So that has been actually addressed through this exemption, wherein tax certainty has been provided to them, that in case they come and they host their applications, virtual cloud services on the Indian data center, which is actually the services are being provided by Indian resident, right. So then those the income that they derive from the hosting of the application or providing cloud services would not be subject to tax, provided this the services that they are providing is outside the country. Now, if the same applications, the services are being provided through to Indian public, then that has to be provided through a reseller mechanism, and therefore the reseller would be an Indian resident who would be subjected to tax. So basically, till 2047, this certainty has been provided to the foreign countries. So that is the
while we were discussing this through the day, one of the experts pointed out that there could be misuse of these incentives by the entities, and therefore we should have measures which prevents the misuse of these incentives and ensure that all the benefits are passed on to our economy, to the growth of our economy in a more meaningful way.
Absolutely.
So have you thought of those measures? Are they in place?
Yeah. So basically, the data centers that would be provided on which this application will be hosted would be specified data centers. Then the approvals would be there, and some prescribed conditions would be there, which would be subsequently forming part of the rules and further regulations. But this provides a broad framework in the statute, so that it becomes as an enabler for including them and for onboarding them for this purpose.
A question on challenges to you also, Mr. Chaturvedi. There is often a concern from the small and medium-sized enterprises that they face a lot of difficulty when they are navigating the customs regulations. Are there specific measures that that the new proposals have in place? So when you have a new ecosystem, you take care of their challenges, their concerns?
Yes. So I should thank you for this question, because that is one of the focus areas as far as the customs process simplification is concerned. Particularly for the MSME sectors, we've come up with a provision where we've removed the value limits for enabling export to the courier mode. Now, courier, of course, as you are aware, is one of the fastest growing industries, and most of the people, the e-com operators as well as most of the small businesses also use it for the purposes of giving a greater visibility to their goods which reach the foreign shores through a courier export. Now, certain segments of that industry would always find it very difficult when you put a value cap on the on the shipment that could be effected through a courier. So, the moment you remove that cap, you are giving a fillip to such exports, particularly like designers, niche designers, bespoke furniture, all of that will come in excess of a value limit of 10 lakhs. So, that is one thing that we have done. We have done away with the value limits on courier. Again, another issue which the couriers and the consignments going through the couriers face are largely the issue of returns and rejects. So, there used to be bottlenecks around that, how to establish the identity of something which has gone out of India, let's say, and when it comes back, should it be given a duty-free treatment or not? So, there were issues, packages would get opened, packages might get damaged in the process, unnecessary cost to the trade. So, we have taken care of that, through a system-based mapping of the export document vis-a-vis the import documents, we will take care of that. A third thing was the return to the sender for the perspective of a courier company. Or consignment comes, it's not cleared from customs, maybe the KYC fails or someone doesn't want to take delivery. Right. So, what do you do with it? Because those goods pile up in the customs go down and you can only dispose them after a period of time. So, we are making some enabling provisions in the Customs Act to provide for a situation where those goods could actually be returned. So, this is the reverse logistics in the courier industry. So, targeting exports from the MSME on the courier mode has been one of the factors. The other thing is we are also trying to simplify the processes of registration and export of goods, so that if the goods leave the factory and they enter the port premises, there is a minimal or zero interference by the customs, and the let export order to such consignments is given, provided the container is sealed in a factory and comes in a very tamper-proof sealed condition to the point of export. That part we have also looked at improving the trust and the predictability that the government would like to give as far as the treatment of customs processes with our trusted clients are concerned. You would be aware that we have an authorized economic operator program. Now, that AEO program basically is built around trust. You have a good record of compliance, of solvency, of adherence to procedures. I trust you and I give you a facilitation. Now, the current facilitation, for example, is that you can import, but you can pay the duty after a period of 15 days. So, we are extending the duty deferral period from 15 days to only once a month. You pay duty only once and you can keep importing consignments during the period. And to expand this net, we are also now looking at the possibility of having manufacturers importers as a separate class of people who could be given a treatment equivalent to an AEO. So, that will actually help in a greater facilitation, envisioning a situation where the goods get off a ship and reach the factory on, and you pay the duty subsequently. It's a faster process, it's a faster turnaround time, less congestion at the port, more predictability and certainty for the trade, both import and export, for planning the businesses both in the short term and the long term.
Okay, so that was about the objective, but a question on how do you ensure that these changes are implemented smoothly? So, we see a big shift in how customs operations will now be run with more digital and warehouse focused changes.
Yes.
How do you plan to keep the communication lines open, and it's a two-way communication with the industry players most effectively, because that is where the implementation will perhaps percolate to different sectors?
Yes. So, the first and foremost thing is that all such processes in any case will be digital and automated. So, there is no manual intervention, so to say, in the processes. For example, in the warehousing, the earlier provision was that if I need to move goods from one warehouse to the other, I need to apply and get a permission from an officer. We have just simply done away with that, and it will be just a self-declaration and an intimation which will be available on the system. Now, just for doing a tracking of the movement, it's going to be an electronic tracking, it's a risk management system. The third part is, of course, the communication with the stakeholder in the trade. The communication channels are, of course, through the integrated application that the customs is going to develop. Everything is going to be online. So, a person gives a declaration online, he gets a response online. The communication to a very large extent will be to the extent possible without a human interface. That apart, there is an escalation mechanism that is also provided by way of raising tickets, by way of help desk, by way of phone in, then by way of walk-in, grievances, CP-grams, redressal of those grievances. So, there is a structure which is in place. The challenge is also to see that if there are issues with that system, then how do we make it more robust? We have an implementation schedule and we have an implementation plan for all the changes that are process related, we will be adhering to that plan, I can assure you that.
That's right. Thank you for elaborating on all of these proposals, simplifying it for our viewers to understand, most importantly, laying out the implementation strategy that you have in place. Mr. Agrawal, a question to you on the STT hike, because given the kind of response that it has seen, just a 0.03% hike, and we saw that kind of market bloodbath. So, I do understand your department has issued a clarification, but just to put into perspective for our viewers, what was the intent behind that hike that took place, and the response that it generated in such a short while?
Yeah, so if you see that the STT on the cash segment has not been disturbed, because essentially that is towards investment, and that is just kept like that. And the rate on the FNO segment has been enhanced, and the thought was that you see, in the last about 2 years, when we see the growth in the volumes and the number of transactions that are happening, that has risen exponentially, and the total volumes are of the order of about 500 times the GDP of the country. Now, who are all the retail investors? The retail investors, generally it is reported that they incur losses in this FNO segment. The nature of the transaction is more speculative in nature. So, through this measure, it was basically an attempt also to keep a check on the volume of the transactions. So, that was the thought. The thought is not augmentation. The thought is essentially to recognize this fact that this is a speculative activity with a large volume, wherein the retail investors are also taking a hit and they are running losses.
Okay, so before we wrap up the conversation, a quick question on how these measures, of course, they're aimed at strengthening India's tax administration, making them more at pace with international standards. But with each sector, we've seen that the thrust has not just been on developing the sector domestically. We are trying to position India as a global player. So in that aspect, if I could ask you, what more changes may be required in the times to come? We're going step by step, but in the times to come, to ensure that India plays a major role in shaping the global tax framework. So we perhaps bring about that change and that the world follows. We've done that in a number of sectors. This could be another area.
Yeah, so if you see that, last 2 years, simplification of the laws is one of the important initiatives that has been taken on the tax front, and also a conscious effort is being made as to how to make the compliance, tax compliance, easy and more infuse more element of tax certainty on part of the taxpayer, so that taxpayer is confident enough in so far as compliance is concerned. So that is from the domestic side. Now also the sentiment from the foreign investors side also, tax certainty is also one of the key elements that the department is actually conscious of, and keeping in view that spirit, the earlier you see the point that I mentioned about safe harbor, providing expanding the ambit of safe harbor, wherein we say that okay, these are the thresholds based on some scientific analysis, and so long as these thresholds are you come within these thresholds, no questions asked, right? So that provides tax certainty not only in terms of the thresholds but also the time period. So when you talk about data centers and say okay, till 2047 this is my you see rules of the game, so that provides a tax certainty and that brings investors to your fold. So these are the attempts that we are making.
That's right. But for now, what we know is that this budget for the fiscal year 2026-27 has given us significant reforms, and it will be interesting to see how they shape up India's tax and customs landscape in the years to come, and make it globally acceptable, perhaps, as we've been discussing, align it with the global standards. Thank you once again to Mr. Agrawal and Mr. Chaturvedi for joining us, simplifying all of these proposals, helping us and our viewers understand the kind of intent intent that went behind, making these proposals. They're part of the budget making team, most importantly, and what kind of benefit it is going to have on the individuals, on the small and medium enterprises, on also the corporates. Thank you once again. Appreciate you joining us on Sansad TV. To you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well.
To watch more programs of Sansad TV, subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to like and share them.